All right, so for the next lesson, we're going to focus on the guess.html. So here it is. By default, it doesn't do anything. So let's get to that file. Now, I should have said earlier on, like, we're just going to skip all of this comment stuff that Scott had, and we're just going to build our own. We're not going to add all the different features. We're just going to make it a little bit more basic than that. We're going to add our own script externally. So let's call it guess.js. Okay, so let's create a file called guess.js. And just to test it out, let's say it's working. So that means when this HTML file gets loaded to the browser, once it parses and gets to here, the browser will then download that file. And once it downloads that file, it executes it, and I should see working in the console. So let's see that happen. Refresh. There it is. So we can confirm that we can now code, and everything should run, assuming there's no other mistakes. So the first thing is we need some way to make this button do something. So that means two steps. We have to grab the DOM element through the query selector and add a click event. So let's grab the button. We'll say instead of btn, maybe I'll call it guess button, because I'm going to have a reset button later on. And we're going to do the query selector. And what did I call it? Let's mark up. What can I use to grab that button? Let's just add an ID. We'll just call it guess. ID of guess. And so here, let's call it guess. So let's just test it out. Now in class, I would have said, let's console log the guess button just to see if it works. But alternatively, if I were to just leave that, save this as it is right now, and then run it, what I could do is to test whether this is working. I could just say, instead of console log here, I could just console log here. So I could say console log button here. What did I call it? Oh, guess button. That's right. Guess button. And there it is. And as you can see, when I hover over this, you can see this is hovering as well. So that's a live DOM element. Alternatively, since this is already the console, I don't have to say console.log. I can just type in that, and it will evaluate to that DOM element. So now that's the first step is done. The second step is to add a click event. So we can say guess button dot add event listener click. Make sure there's a comma after that click, and here we can name some kind of function. Let's call it decide if one. I did want to mention, notice I'm using something called camel casing, where the first letter of each word is capitalized in JavaScript. So you want to make sure that you do camel casing. And so let's go ahead and define that function. Okay, let's just make sure it runs inside function. So this means if I click on the button, it should run this code, which means I should see this quote in the console. Let's refresh and test that out. Click. There it is. So the code is running. So what we want to do is we want to grab whatever was typed into that input box. So that's a two-step process. We need to grab this DOM element, the query selector, and then since it's an input box, we grab whatever's inside it through the dot value. So let's do that. Say var, we'll call it guess input equals. So now we have to find something to hook onto. So here's the input markup, that's the text box. So here, there's already an ID of guess field. So let's go ahead, you know what, might as well just say guess field then. Equals document.query selector, whoops, not that one, query selector, not that one either. guess field. Oh, I'm not even sure what if that's capitalized. I don't think it was. I think it was. Oh, it was. Okay, great. Let's just test if that's the case. Console log guess field. So if I click this, I should see. Click. I should see the DOM element of that. So to get the value, I can say guess.field.value. Make sure the v is lowercase. Refresh. So there it is, 345. So it's working. So now we have something to compare to. So now we can put in our logic for to see if it's too high or too low or whatnot. So we can say if guess field.value is greater than, and now we need some kind of constant or some kind of number. So in class I said this game reminded me of the Price is Right game, so that's why I said of our price. Could be anything you want really. And for now we said it was some kind of constant number, 87. We're going to change that to a random number in a second. And then we said if guess field.value is greater than price, then what do you want to do? We want to just test out the logic. Well, let's just console out too high just to make sure the logic is right. Else if guess field.value is less than price, console log too low. Else, let me just put that there. Else winner. By the way, see, notice how my console log here is indented incorrectly. Now if I say Control S to save it, which I just did, notice how it all formatted nicely. That's because of the prettier extension, which I tried to find earlier today in class, which I mistakenly thought it was Prettify. It wasn't Prettify, it was prettier. Okay, let's back to our there. So let's test this out just to see if that is working. Let's go into our page, refresh it. So we know it's 87. So if I say 80, submit, it says too low. If I say 90, submit, it's too high. If I get the actual number, it should say winner. So we know the logic is correct. So now that the logic is correct, let's try to make, instead of consoling here, we want it to display those messages here in the browser somewhere. So there is already in the HTML markup this tag here, lower high. Forget these two elements, which are remnants from Scott's class. You could delete those if you want, or if you decided to use them, that's fine too. But we're just going to use this one here. So it has an ID of lower high. So two-step process again. Let's grab it and let's display to it. So let's say low or high equals document.query selector, and what I already forgot. What is this? Oh, right, low or high. So low or high. So here, let's just comment that out. We're going to say low or high dot text content equals too high. Okay, so let's just copy that, move that down here, make that to too low, and copy that, move that down here, and say some kind of winner. Okay, so that means we don't need the console logs anymore. So let's delete that and refresh this. So now if I say 70, I see that message in the actual web page now. If I say 80, oh, what number was it? It was 90, I believe. Right, so 87 is the actual thing. Great. So what else did we do in class? I think we said we wanted to make this number some kind of random number. So in class we decided, okay, we know that Math.random gives a value between 0 and 1, 0 inclusive, 1 exclusive, but we want something between, if we wanted something between 1 and 100, we'll say math times random times 100. That'll give you something between 0 and 99, but it'll give you all those decimals. So we don't want all those decimals. We just want to round it. So that's why we say math.floor. So that'll give you 0 to 99 in whole numbers. So then we say +1. So that'll give you 1 to 100. So now that should work. I think I also just, to save time, I'll just console log the price immediately so I know what I'm dealing with. Let's refresh. So that's the number, 24. So if each time I refresh, it should generate a new number. See, 37, 20. So if I just say 19, too low, 21, too high, 20, winner. Another thing we did was let's add some kind of reset button to the page. So if we had something like this and just duplicated it, call it reset, then what's going to happen is I want this field to clear, and I want this field to clear, and I want a new number generated. And I believe in class I said it's probably wise to have this in some kind of function. So let's do that. Let's say function randomize, and inside that we're going to have this line of code, or these two lines of code. Where'd it go here? There we go. Now, however, I need to run this for the first time. For the initial time it has to run. So I'm going to run that function right there at the bottom. Let's just make sure that works. Save. Yes, save. Ooh, I think I closed it there. Yes. Okay, so now let's refresh. Just look for 21. Oh, price is not defined. That's because, oh, okay, so now we're dealing with the scoping issue. Let's put that var price up here. Okay, and we'll just have it uninitialized for now. And then down here, we'll just, don't say var price, just say price. All right, so let's try that. So the 85 is the number. So if I say 84, too low, 86, too high, 85, winner, great. And if I reset, it doesn't do anything. So we have to make that happen. So let's grab the button for that. Reset button equals document.query selector. What did I call it? I think I called it reset. And then we want to reset button, add event listener, click, and let's reset game. So that's a function we still have yet to define. Oops, what just happened there? Set game. Okay, so let's go ahead and define that function. And what we're going to do is we're going to call this function to randomize our number again. And we're going to reset the fields. So this field here, we need to clear that. So let's grab this here, this line. Guess field. Let's do that up top here first. And then we'll say guess field dot value equals empty string, so that should clear. As well as we want to do the same thing for the message. So this one here, let's put that up here. And low or high. Now because we're dealing with the paragraph tag and not an input box, we want the text content to be an empty string. Okay, so let's see if that works. Refresh, 63, we'll just say 63 just to. Okay, now let's reset, and you can see it generated a new number and the two fields are clear. Another quick thing that I didn't mention in class, let's try to make the whole background color a different colors when we win. So down here when we win, well, you could do something like document query selector. Sorry, you don't want that. You want to say document.body. And there's a couple ways to do this. You could say .style, and then after the dot style, you could say .whatever CSS background, or whatever CSS property you want. So we want the background color here to equal, we'll just say yellow, just to make it simple. So let's see that in action. 27 is the number. Let's see if that works. Let me just say 26 for now. Not too low. Let me see 27. There you go. You can see it's yellow. So hopefully that helps you for the second half.